Good morning, everybody. I've never thought I'd be so nervous to speak in front of people I do know. So I know everyone here. It's really a privilege and an honor to be here today. I never thought my friends would pay to actually come and hear me speak. If you just listen to me more when we have a beer, the wisdom is actually for free. Okay, and I'm mostly surprised. My wife actually surprised me. She's here today as well. She would actually pay me to shut up instead of talking. So thank you for showing that you care today. I really appreciate that as well. So today we're going to talk about resilience and exactly what resilience is. After this entire keynote, we will give you the content. So if we go a bit over time, you're more than welcome to leave. I don't take offense to things like that, except for Duarte. I will put it on your bill if you leave early today. Yes, you actually get credits for my time today. And Llewellyn, you can leave at any time because your presence really doesn't contribute anything here today. So you don't bring the vibe, if you hear what I'm saying. So can everybody hear me loud and clear? Great, the audio is good. So today we're going to talk about resilience. Now the first thing that I want to say is welcome. Checking up my notes. Bathrooms are right over there, if you don't know where the bathrooms are. We're going to have Q&As at the end, but during any time, if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll stop and we can answer that question. Okay, it's really, I don't mind things like that. You're not going to take away my attention because I know we don't always write down the questions. We forget about it at the end. Yuda, you guys know, every time I'm with you guys, you can ask a question at any time. For the people on Zoom, we've got a couple of people virtually here. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. Unfortunately, you guys have no questions, or you can write it in the comments. Noreen will read it at the end. I think that's that. Today, we're going to go through a journey of resilience. So we're going to talk about exactly what it is, the finite and the infinite space. So we're going to look at existing companies. I selected some companies that you guys know well from the media. So some of that you might already know or might seem irrelevant to you. And then we're definitely going to bring it in a bit local as well. Local, not to an extent to Nelspruit, but definitely to South Africa. And the whole idea about the first section is to take you on this journey on how do other companies look like in terms of resilience, in terms of the finite and infinite space. And then we're going to move the section to practical, what you can do in your company. Okay, so from the first one, if you've got some tips, great. This is what we see from the market. Any companies I do mention didn't pay for it, okay? And some companies I put in the bad spotlight. It's not against them, it's against the business style or, what's happening in the market. So I'm not attacking against any company. So I just want to put it out there, right? I'm going to talk about Toyota as well, and there's going to be good things and bad things from a business point of view. And I've got nothing against Toyota. I love Toyota. Okay, I've got everything against Ford. I'm just teasing. We're not going to go there today. Okay, so if you're nervous, if you're here, I'm most probably going to mention your company on everything you did wrong as well. Duarte has a complete list of about 10 things he does wrong daily, but he's open to things like this. Okay, so next slide. Just a quick one. This is, where's Josh? Next one. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to forget at the end. I just want to thank you, Josh, for everything today. Really, the setup looks amazing. We can give him a round of applause. It really looks great. And the lack of audience is not you. It's all on them. But I can't say anything to them because they're not here. Just teasing. Okay, so this is Exemplo Capital. This is myself and Noreen's company. I'm just going to mention quickly what we are all about so that you know where this perspective comes from. We're all about sustainable leadership development. Okay, we have the privilege to speak into the operational side of companies, especially when it comes to how they work with their employees, their processes and systems. And our heart is for people to go into an organic state of sustainable leadership, where the emphasis is sustainable. That's really the tone of today's voice as well. When you go to resilience, we look at not the finite space, but the infinite space. And for that, everything that you do needs to be sustainable. You can't be great one day and the next day lack. Okay, it needs to be sustainable. So for us, we start with sustainable leadership development, where we work with people, especially the leadership and managers of a company. Together, we have scaled 4 startup companies. Nareen and myself built sales models for, I think, over 14 countries. Nareen is well recruited. I don't know what's the count. I put a number here. Over 600 people, even more. So Nareen knows people. If you need anyone to help you with recruitment, she is absolutely amazing in that. Then myself, I'm the author of Leadership Networking Program, or LNP, keynote speaker, that's why I'm here today, on business resilience and sustainable leadership. And together, myself and Nareen really have the privilege to work on great projects, and collectively with one of the people in the audience, I can't say too much, but we're collectively working on actually being the first unicorn status company in the Lowveld, and the second in South Africa with the projects that we're working on. So that's something that we really chase, is kind of our legacy that we want to leave behind. And the last 2 things I want to say is we also build processes for companies to scale better. And then we are currently the only company in the world that offers a guarantee on revenue growth when it comes to our marketing plans, right? So we are not marketers ourselves. We develop marketing plans for marketers to execute, and we're the only ones that go with that guarantee. Sorry if I take a sip of water. Okay, next slide. So I want to talk about finite versus infinite. That's the first thing that I want to talk about. So in the mid-1980s, a philosopher and theologian by the name of James Cars, I think that's his name, James Cars, that's his name. He invented this theory, or he thought about this theory of a world that has infinite games and finite games. Anyone here heard about that theory before? Okay, great. Love the show of hands. Glad you guys are reading. So he said the following: finite games are known players, a known objective, there's a known beginning, known middle, and known end. There are fixed rules, and the objective is to win the game. There's a winner and a loser. So if we think about sport, for example, if we think about rugby, there are known rules, except for English rugby players, but for the rest of the world, there are known rules. There's a beginning, halftime, and end. There's known players. There's a certain amount of players, and the objective is to win the game. At the end of that 80 minutes, 94 minutes, there's going to be a winner, and there's hopefully going to be a loser. But then James said, okay, to define infinite games, it's not completely the opposite. The infinite games there are known and unknown players. There are known and unknown players. It is a known and an unknown game. And the purpose of the game, the objective of the game is to continue as long as you can. And at any point, new players can enter the game, and at any point, players can drop out of the game. Make sense? So that's the infinite games. And the objective is to stay in the game as long as possible. The rules are changeable. Now, if I go in the infinite theory, what does it sound like? This sounds like business, right? In business is an infinite game. There's no winner on career. You cannot win education. You cannot win in your marriage unless you're the wife. Then maybe you can win in the marriage. And there's definitely no such thing as winning in business. There's no such thing as winning in business because it's an infinite game. New players can come along any single time. Anyone can drop out at any single point. And the problem with this is if you listen to the language of business leaders out there in the world, the people you most probably follow on social media, on Instagram, the TED Talks you listen to, if you listen to those leaders, they don't have a clue the game that they're playing in. They've got no clue. Why? Because they talk about being the best. They talk about being number one. They talk about beating their competition. On what metrics? On what rules? On what objective? You cannot have a finite mindset in an infinite game. If your purpose is to be better than your competition, on what metrics? And if your competition is kicked out of the game, did you win? And I don't mean to say psychologically or hypothetically. I mean literally. Does it mean that you're going to get a trophy and say your business will do now good forever because you're the winner of business? It doesn't work that way. And we sit with that mindset, right? When I say we, I'm talking about myself as well. Each day when you have meetings, your objective is to be number one. What can we do? But we're playing in an infinite game. And then companies that fail in purpose is usually because they play a finite mindset in an infinite game. Next slide. So before we start, I want you to quickly look at this, right? So, million versus a billion. What's the difference? Yes? Zeros, okay. Look at the philosopher, Llewellyn, there at the back. Okay, so when we listen to media especially, right, we get our news, we see what government's doing with money, we see what businesses are doing with money. The term billion is used daily, right? When we talk about the amount of people, the amount of revenue, the amount of whatever, it's a daily term. Now, because of the misuse of billion, what the media has done is they have softened the meaning of the word billion. So in your mind, if you write it down, you would write a million. If you write it out, 1, 6 zeros. If you write a billion, you would write 1, 9 zeros. And it will be tremendous way more. Yet we don't truly understand the power. Now listen to this. So quickly do the math with me, and you can take your calculator if you wanted to. I'm not doing the math in my head. I obviously planned for this math, so you're more than welcome to do so. So the average high, the top high salary in South Africa today, the top 5% salary, I'm not talking about the top 1%, is an average of 100,000 Rand a month, okay? That's what most of you here, and I'm just teasing, I don't know what you make, but in any case, 100,000 Rand is kind of like what the high professional is chasing towards. That's the ideal. And then the businessman in that space will kind of chase more, the entrepreneur, the whoever. But the ceiling gap for a professional, not, I won't say the gap, but is 100,000 Rand. So that's not for you to chase or to do anything about that. I'm using the 100,000 as an example. So here's the example. Let's take two people. The one's got 1 million Rand in his bank account. The other one's got 1 billion Rand in his bank account. Okay, we're just going to take one and one. The person with 1 million Rand can buy himself 10 months of 100,000 Rand salary. So his 1 million can buy him 10 months worth of freedom, if you want to put it like that. And you might say, okay, I only need 50,000 Rand, then it's double that. I only need 25,000 Rand, then it's 4 times that. It doesn't matter. Just take the amount you have in your mind and move it along with me. So, if you have 1 billion Rand in your bank account and you want to take 100,000 Rand for yourself as a salary each month, who can tell me how long that will last? 833 years. Not months, years. That's how long it will take you to give out 1 billion Rand if you take 100,000 Rand each month. Let's go to the other example. If you were to want to be super wealthy and you say to yourself, I want to take $1 million a month from that billion will last you 83 years. So that means you're sitting here today. If you had 1 billion Rand in your account, I know about 2 people here that has that. And teasing, don't go rob anybody. No one here that I know. I would know because I would come after your business. Milk you for some of that. So what will happen is if you have 1 billion Rand, regardless of the age you're sitting here now, you can use $1 million and it will never run out every month. And in the beginning, you might think, oh, that's easy, Ferrari, this. I think after 10 years, it might become difficult if you have everything that money should be able to buy you. Now, why am I saying this? Why am I giving you this example? First of all, it's really when you read in the newspaper when people misplaced billions or stole billions, how much time they stole from other people, what effect they stole from other people. So when companies have access to this type of money and they misuse it, it should make you angry a bit inside. Because we're talking about a real difference that can make. But the media puts it out there as if $1 billion is just, the only difference between $1 million and $1 billion is just the M and the B. That's how we read it today. Now I'm saying this because with money like that comes a tremendous power. Tremendous power. And you can't say money isn't power. I tell you now, if you have R1 billion, you've got some power, you've got some influence. So with that comes tremendous responsibility. Now the problem personally that I have, I think globally, it should be illegal for a 19-year-old to have $1 billion or rand or whatever in his bank account. Because surely, even if he developed the greatest app out there, and he's entitled to that money, I'm not saying he didn't work for it, he's got no idea what he can do with it. He's just going to attack a new lifestyle that he's going to be bored of in a couple of years. The other thing is, I really think it should be, if you didn't work for that type of money, even if you did work for it, I guess, it is a tremendous weight of responsibility out there. Why am I using this example about a 19-year-old and people not knowing what to do with their money and millions and billions? Why am I saying this? Because we're talking about finite, infinite in the games of resilience today. So I'm saying it because of the following. If you want to measure your company's resilience, if you want to measure if your company is resilient, ask yourself the following. Ask yourself, what if a billionaire comes along? What if someone with this power that can afford to undercut every single price that you offer, that can afford to 10 times any best marketing strategy that you have, what if that person comes along? What will it do to your business? And I really want you to think about it for just a second, because this was always just hypothetical, right? If you speak to companies, you'd say, what if a billionaire comes along, and the company will sit and say, well, then I'll go work for him. Or people didn't really take that in, especially in smaller economies like Nelspruit. People don't really think about those type of things. And if they do think about it, they think about it from a hypothetical point of view. But this is what happened. So there's a company, alux.com. What they do is they only follow money trends and money movements from billionaires. So they talk to billionaires, they follow their trends, they talk about what they're busy doing and how they're busy doing it. And so this is the interesting thing. The one interviewer spoke to the billionaire and says, listen, the recession is coming up, the American recession. I think we all know that, right? They know it. Everyone's prepared for this recession. How do you feel about that? That guy paused the interviewer and said, listen, I want to be honest and straight. Recession is a word for middle-class income streams. It doesn't exist in a billionaire's mindset. Because recession is a time when the world makes the most wealth. Always. And I thought to myself, okay, which is most probably good, because what happens is more money surely means more businesses, surely means more opportunities. So these type of people are helping others without loss. And that is true. That's not true. I'm not saying go with a pitchfork and attack a billionaire. They've got a very, very important place in our society if they're not 19 years old. Sorry if you're 19 years old. And so then the interviewer went on and said, okay, so during recession, or during these times, what do you do with your money? What are you guys investing in? And they said the basic, they said commodities. That's the first thing that we put our money in, because there's going to be a huge scarcity of gold, oil, and things like that. Please, I want to pause there. I'm not a financial advisor. Don't take anything that I say and go put your money in there and come and knock on my door. Okay, I follow business trends. Just want to be very clear on that. You never know. So at the end of the day, he said, okay, we do the basics. We invest in commodities. We pick up luxury good items. So we take everyone's Rolex and yachts and art. Because why? Because when people need money, that's the first thing they drop. So they buy it at a bargain and a fraction of the price. And they just keep it because the demand will come back when the economy stabilizes. It's natural. But then he said, the most important thing that they invest their money in is boring businesses. Boring businesses is the number one shopping spree that a billionaire goes after when they are in a recession. Why? They are cautious to innovate because they don't know because innovation is opportunistic, right? It's all about timing and opportunity and everything. So during a recession, timing is very unpredictable. So they don't bring out the latest healthcare technology. They don't bring out the latest, biggest new mall and things like that. They go after boring businesses. And you might think about, why does this bother you? Because most of you that's sitting here, and I don't mean to bust your bubble, you've got a boring business. The way you do your business might be exciting, but if you think about it, if your business can be copied and pasted by money, you've got a boring business. What makes a business not a boring business is money cannot copy and paste what you're doing. Money can buy the people that can copy and paste it, but they can't copy and paste it. If you offer apples and someone else can offer the same, they just need money to start it and put up a shop, you've got a boring business. So I was talking about, I'll actually mention that later. So just keep in mind that, unfortunately, your business is boring, okay? So we want to get out of that. Own it. It's nothing wrong. Billionaires want your business. That's very, very good for you. You've got something that they want. And someone will be in the privileged space where they will buy you out and you can make money, but if it's not worth it, they'll just open up a shop right next door and close you. We see that with Amazon, doing that to so many retailers. That's what they do. They create a model where you can be part of that. Brilliant, that's great, but they come to say, our money can do whatever you do, can sell whatever you sell faster and more trustworthy than you can ever do it. Now, isn't that scary? Okay, next slide. So, I'm going to look at a couple of case studies. You know the brands out there, and we're just going to look out on their resilience and how they worked in the market. So the first one is Apple. I quickly want to compare Apple and Samsung with one another, now that we've established the billion figure in our minds. So Apple is worth $2.58 trillion. So that's $2,000 billion is their net worth. Samsung is worth a tenth of that. It's worth $281 billion. So if we think about it, just from a net value comparison, who is the most successful? Apple, yes, okay. Now, I want you to follow me here. Apple's got one company, multiple sites. They've got one company, and they average around 100 products. This includes the accessories. Okay, sometimes they acquire more or go into dealership, but if you think about it, you've got the iPhone, iPad. You can maybe mention 10, and then they've got the charger for the iPhone, the charger for the iPhone. So they do about 100 products, right? Whereas Samsung has 80 affiliate companies, then chemicals as well, and they do about 10,000 products. Yet they're only worth a tenth of Apple. Apple versus Samsung, and I want to now give a bit more example of what is resilient and what is not resilient, right? Apple is focused on resilience. They focus about the infinite games and not focus about their competition at all. Samsung, on the other hand, during interviews admit that all that they want to do is be number one. Therefore, each year they will chase Apple to bring out the latest new device that's better than Apple. And they get it right each year. Each year, at the end of the year, you will see Samsung's tech specs on their phones is way better than Apple's. On every single piece of technology that Apple offers, Samsung aims to be the best. And you might think, okay, but if they get it right, just look at the turnover. So in an interview, one of my favorite keynote speakers and authors, Simon Sinek, he has a privilege to speak into the lives of Apple executives and of Samsung executives, on both. So what they did is he said to them, okay, at a Samsung event, they give them, at that time when the iPod just came out, they gave him their version of the iPod. And he tested it, and he loved it. He said, it's amazing technology. And Simon, being Simon, loving to test people, during the next Apple event, he sat with employee number 5. Now, Apple's employees are numbered based on their importance. So Wozniak and Jobs were employees number 1 and 2. He sat with employee number 5, so this is way up in the company, in a limousine on the way to the keynote. And he said to this guy, I want to tell you something. Sony gave me this MP3 player. Can't remember the Zoom or the whatever the name is. They gave me this, and I rated the best MP3 player way better than your iPod that you brought out. He said this to employee number 5 that needs to pay him for this event. And he said it to wait for a response. He actually just wanted a response. He meant what he said, but he wanted a response. So this guy said to him, he said, listen, I've got no doubt in my mind. I've got no doubt in my mind that that is the best MP3 player on the market today. He says, because the difference between us and Samsung is we brought something out that the consumer needed at the time. And our focus is on what's next. What does the consumer need? What technology will fit them? Our focus is on what's next. Our focus has never been what Samsung is busy doing with. Our focus has never been what other competitors are busy doing with. Our focus is on us and our relationship with our consumer. He says, Samsung each year is just chasing our products. So, naturally speaking, if you just need to improve this and your focus is on, everyone will be able to improve our products. And he said to Simon, he said, why do you think each year our products are irrelevant, are obsolete? It's because of that reason. Kodak, who remembers Kodak? So Kodak's employee was actually the first inventor of the digital camera, right? He took this to Kodak. He said to Kodak, look what I invented. This is for Kodak, you know? And Kodak said, listen, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to completely scrape that and not bring that out to market, and we're going to fire you for wanting to be a threat to our business. Kodak wasn't interested because in the finite space, this piece of item is a competition to what they offer, which is film cameras. And they saw that, but they never thought about the infinite space. They wanted to be the best in where they are currently. That same guy took that technology to Sony. What did Sony do? They brought out the first digital camera. And Sony went woof, and then Canon and everyone came, and Sony was silent for a while. Completely, it wasn't the best digital camera because Canon and Nikon was chasing what Sony brought out the whole time. They were doing the Samsung model. But now, all those years, Sony was busy focusing on mirrorless cameras and cinematic cameras and cameras that influencers and those people will use. And overnight, Sony is now by far the best camera that you can get. Okay, I'm not selling Sony. I can't even afford a Sony. I don't have one. I've got a Canon, and I'm very happy with it. But I'm telling you that that's where their focus was at. The last example on this page that I want to use is Victorinox. Everyone knows that. So Victorinox was the reason why every single boy had a Swiss Army knife. Everyone had a Swiss Army knife. It was by far the only thing they sold. Then something happened out of their control, 2011. And all the airlines and everyone basically said, you cannot bring this on your trip. And an economical factor that happened with them caused worldwide for their sales to stop. Completely stop. But their attention was never about what their product was, because what they did as a resilient company, how awesome is this? Before that happened, Victorinox went to a lot of companies within their industry, and they negotiated deals with them and say, listen here, in the event of our company fails, would you employ our staff? And we will do the same for you. They went to their competition to offer this negotiation, to say, listen here, this allows you to risk a bit more in the market. If we fail, would you look after my people? How many of you would go to your competitor and say, listen here, if you fail, I'll take over your staff, but I want you to do the same for me? Why? Because we're in the finite space. We don't want to acknowledge our competition. We don't want to work with them for the benefit of the consumer. This allowed Victorinox to put out a lot of money each year. They were very great with stewarding their money, and they allowed to just explore new ventures when this happened. They started bringing out watches and clothing lines and everything like that. And their stock went literally, if you go look at the history of stock, it went whoop, whoop, immediately recovered because of that. And this is finite thinking. The problem is we sit here and we think we can predict the future. We sit here and think, I don't want to make infinite decisions. I'll do it when problem comes. I'll do it when I realize my sales is not recovering. Victorinox had no warning. Nothing. The demand was there, the market just closed for them. They had no warning that this would come. But they were great beforehand. And the best example I want to give from that is an example from John Aldrich's book, Resilience. He opens the book up by saying that our soul has a natural ability to resilience, to want to live, to want to continue, to want to move into the infinite space. And he says there's a problem. When we look at animals, for example, there's two animals that resembles resilience. The first one is the horse. The second one is the camel. He says, but the difference is the horse will be strong and will be great and will be perfect until he is tired or until he is hungry or until he is injured, he will slow down, right? He waits for the signs and he will just slow down. The camel, on the other hand, will keep on pushing at exactly the same pace, exactly the same strength, till one day he just says no more, he collapses and dies. And he says that is the problem with how we treat our souls, and that is the problem on how we treat our businesses. We think that we are a horse. We will continue with our souls until we get to the point where it's showing signs of, depletion, and we all know what happens with that. You hit rock bottom, you go through midlife crises, you need everything. Why? Because you said, I'm fine, I'll wait for the signs, but your soul was not developed like that. It will push on through and just collapse. And the same with our businesses. We think that we will make plans to be more resilient if our business shows signs, but your business doesn't work like that, because overnight, it can just collapse. Overnight, it can just be done, and it would have been nothing because of what you did. But it can be stopped for something that you have done. The last two examples are some local ones. Let's look at the time here. Okay, we're good. So, the Citizen newspaper, everyone knows the Citizen. The Citizen, in a 12-month period, went from selling 400,000 copies of newspaper a month down to 60,000 a month. What happened? Just apps, just technology. They were unfortunately the last ones to bounce off that, where Rapport and all those other people were first. All the News 24 affiliates were first. And then one of my favorite companies out there in South Africa, everyone knows that. We buy cars. Man, I've got respect for these guys. They're doing damage, don't get me wrong. They are doing damage, but they're not doing it in attacking someone else. Listen to this. So We Buy Cars, what they did is they said, okay, and we don't have all the access as of yet on their business models, but in essence what they did is said, okay, we're going to go into a market that everyone is in, right? It's nothing new to sell or buy cars. The only difference that we're going to do is we are going to apply an FMCG model on that. Okay? Fast market consumer goods. That's selling volume at a very low margin. But in order to do that, they just need a lot of funding because you can't grow that. Because a medium-sized car dealership in Nelspruit, the OPEX, the operational cost, is about 300 to 400,000 rand a month. So imagine if you need to grow to that, anyone else would have done it. But they just said, no, if we can buy a car up front, and we don't need to make that much money, we're going to sell a car because everyone is buying a car, right? The market is there. And just overnight, there's We Buy Cars. There they are at. I speak to friends of mine in the industry that completely suppresses and completely ignores the threat that We Buy Cars brings to their business. They don't want to acknowledge it. They say, yeah, but that, and yeah, but that, yeah, but that. Guys, if you're selling cars, I'm telling you now, you really need to start into this model and decide what you're going to do, because in 2 years' time, they will not allow for you to exist. And not because they're attacking you. And you are sitting here, most of you, tried to sell your car to what We Buy Cars or maybe bought a car there. Okay. So, I want to give you some insight on that. Ever wondered around a conversation why some people say they gave me the best deal and some people say they gave me absolutely the worst deal ever? So once again, this is how We Buy Cars work. They've got an algorithm that studies every single listed car dealership in South Africa in real time. They know what car, if it's on the internet or listed, they know every single car out there. Their algorithm hooks the selling price, so they don't know what they paid for it, but they know what they're selling for. And here's the interesting thing. We Buy Cars look at how long that car's been there. They look at that. So if you take your Volvo to them and they give you a horrible price on your Volvo, it's not them. It's the algorithm is telling them there's so many Volvos out there and they don't sell. So this is what we can offer you. Because their business is about swinging volume. The other people, on the other hand, with certain vehicles that you know, Toyota Fortuners, the older models, you will get the best price if you go sell yours by them. They've got a brilliant business model, but here's the biggest threat, right? A week, 10 days ago, was now. We Buy Cars listed. So, think about this quickly. During their IPO, the initial public offering, which is basically where you get money from what you list, because when you list, you don't know what the prices are that you're going to get. You're going to wait for the demand to come in, and that establishes your price, right? So during their IPO, they got 8.3 billion rand in capital. 8.3 billion rand in capital. Now, because they listed, this is brilliant news because finally this gives everyone the opportunity to access their data, okay? Because it's a public-owned company now, you need to get access. We don't need to get access to the historical data, but all the data from now. So this is good news actually for car shop owners and things like that, because you can, if you're smart, you can start analyzing where they're moving their money. Now, think about this. We Buy Cars don't need to advertise, because a lot of companies use that to enter a new market or to grow in a new market. They don't need to advertise. I think they're going to open up way more warehouses, but let's be honest, they don't need to. This is the scary part of resilience, finite and infinite, and this is really, really scary. If this was my company, I would be nervous. Is with 8.3 billion, remember we discussed what the billion is, could they afford to make losses in the industry in order to gain the entire market? And who can compete against that? Could they say, we're going to take half of that budget and give a certain area of cars, a guarantee will give you 50,000 rand more than anyone else would beat you, just to take away their product? Could they sell it at a loss just to gain the consumers. I'm not saying this is what they're going to do. I'm saying if I had overnight access to 8.3 billion, this might be a checkmate move for the industry to say, I want all in, take it or leave it. Now, when we speak to people, and this is what I'm telling you, when someone talks about business, the first thing our minds do is we put our pride aside, or not aside, in front, and we say, okay, because of my pride, I'm going to use suppression as a technique. And suppression as a technique, I'm just going to tell myself, everything is fine. I'm not going to be stressed about it. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about my own game, which is good to say, but ignoring what's happening in the market is stupid. So people use suppression, right? So I want you to sit here and I want you to think about anything. Just don't think about a white bear. You can think about anything as long as it's not white, as long as it's not a bear, and especially if it's not a white bear. That is suppression. Did it work? If something is out there, suppression is not the technique to tell your mind it doesn't work for your mind, but we do it. And then at a later stadium, when it comes out, it creates all of this stress because we think suppression is the method. And suppression, listen to this, will cost you your company. You need to start accepting the space that you are in currently so that you can move out of that. What's the time now? 8:30. Okay. Next one. So, one of my favorite stories, and I got this from, I need to give you some credit. I got this from Duarte. We spoke about it the other day. So, specifically looking at Nelspruit, right? I want you to think about Toyota and Mahindra. Specifically in your, not Nelspruit, Toyota, Nelspruit, but in your context of world that you live in, including those spaces as well. So when Toyota entered the South African market, jare terug, what did they do? On what basis did they enter it? They brought a powerful solution to the poor farmer that needed quality in his day-to-day job. Believe it or not, farming wasn't always a rich industry. It was actually one of the poorest things if you think about your Opal and Dargoed. They had massive lands, but it wasn't a business. It was farming, it was providing, and it was hard, intensive labor. So Toyota brought out a product for the poor guy. Now we follow the economic trends. There's no shame in it. Farmers now, overall speaking, is a very wealthy industry. Very wealthy industry. So what Toyota did was very smart. They said, we'll just follow this guy. We'll follow the farmer. So as the farmer got richer, we said, okay, introduce the new bakkie. And then the farmer got richer, and we said, introduce a new bakkie. And then the farmer got lekker rich, and he said, introduce mama se kar and papa se kar. And they followed that trend the whole time. And if you think about Toyota today, Toyota is not affordable for the person that doesn't need it. First of all, there's way cheaper options out there. They're not the most expensive. But especially with their cruiser lines, they made it very clear on who their target market is. Okay, so keep Toyota in mind. Now comes Mahindra. Mahindra entered on exactly the same principle. They brought a solution for the poorer market. Okay? They brought that solution out and they did brilliant. Then what happened is Mahindra started seeing, okay, Toyota's market is especially cruisers. They make a lot of money out of cruisers. That's kind of their market. That's their niche. And Mahindra started designing and said, let's bring something out that looks in that area. Not exactly the same, but the bulky look. You know what I'm talking about. But let's wait before we bring it to market. And they tested some, and they see people like it, but people can afford cruises, and because they can afford cruises, they buy cruises. Taken. Say that very clear. I found Toyota to be better. It's not against anyone. I'm studying the business models here. But then the following happened. We had the war that had a huge impact on our agricultural sectors. Okay, some of my clients or friends sitting here today that is in that industry, the whole agricultural sector was viable. And then we had problems with export, and then. So what happened is a lot of your farmers shifted back, economy speaking. Like either didn't make it, needed to sell, or just not in the position to buy a new cruiser this year, or 5. There was an economical shift, and Toyota said, well, we never thought about the trend moving backwards. We don't have a reserve cruiser for that market. We have one internationally, just not for the South African market. And Mahindra said, that's my market. That's my gap. Because now the farmer that would have bought 5 cruisers is now going to buy one for himself, and he's going to buy 4 similar-looking vehicles that should just last 5 years, if longer, perfect. But within 5 years' time, he doesn't care about the 5-year time. He cares about tax. And he'd rather buy 4 similar-looking vehicles than 4 low-base Toyotas that in any case can't drive on his crops. And if you drive past Mahindra and Nelspruit, you can see the volume of cars that they're selling. You don't need to be an analyst. Drive there every time. Notice on the road, especially if you drive to Letsetele's side with all the farming and even Malalan's side with all the farming, notice what you see around. How many of those do you see on the road? Now, we don't know what this looks like in terms of resilience because Toyota does phenomenally well with sales. Phenomenally well. They are amazing with bringing out quality. They short nothing there. And then you go on Hello Peter and you see their resilient glitch is their aftermarket services is horrible. Go on any Toyota site, do it. Go Google whatever, go on Hello Peter, and you see all the compliments are sales related and all the complaints are services related. So if Mahindra was smart, hopefully they are. I'm not saying they weren't. We don't know yet how this looks. If Mahindra is smart, they would stick to the business model of sticking with the consumer as they move along and then just complement an after-service market that serves into that. And I can promise you now, if you needed to invest money in South Africa, the fastest moving one over a 10, 20-year period of time, you know what I will say. Okay, so next slide. So now we're going to go into the practical side. Does anyone want to take a break, go to the bathroom, anything? Water? No yawns? Anyone yawning? Fine? Racho? Okay, great. So let's look at the traits of resilience, because now we see how it affects in the market. So I want to start bringing it down to us. How can we kind of train ourselves to be more resilient? How can we train our staff to be more resilient? And how can we build a company from that into resilience? So there's so many advice out there and so many traits. So when we started analyzing resilience, there was these 5 that was common in all of them. So we took resilient companies and we took the resilient staff from those companies, and then we said, okay, let's see what material you have out there, what advice you have out there, and we start analyzing the traits. So here are the first traits. Okay, the first one is to adopt a billionaire mindset. Now, when I say adopt a billionaire mindset, I'm not saying going on a shopping spree. I'm not saying wake up and believe that you've got R1 billion in your account. That's not what it's about. But the billionaire mindset is all about not worrying about money. People that build resilient companies are worried about the future, and it might include money. Obviously, you need money to survive, but they're not focused on how much I can make today. Money is not their driving factor, believe it or not. So that's the billionaire mindset that we talk about. The other thing in the billionaire mindset is competition is not their enemy. The resilient billionaire mindset is about, I'm doing this for me, for my company, for my consumer. I'm not worried about where my competition is at. Apple is a perfect example for this. Then they are focused on constant improvement. Each day, myself and Irene worked together for a company where one of the good things, I guess, that they definitely brought to the table, it was really their vision on each day, how can we be better? Not comparing better to others than ourselves. What's the improvement factors? The billionaire mindset also includes relationship, and loyalty is everything. With clients, with workers, with staff, it's all about relationship and it's all about loyalty. If you cannot have a relationship with someone, if you cannot build that community, they cut ties with it on the spot. It's not about the quick sell on that. And then this is something we're going to talk about in depth, but they serve with solutions over needs. They serve with solution over needs. The second trade is the what, how, why trade. So, who knows that theory? Who's heard about it before? Okay, so the what, how, why is very interesting. It's not my theory. Just saying, it's not my theory. So what it resembles is, they say the problem with most non-resilient companies and finite companies, and think about this for a moment, is companies are focused on what they do, how they do it, and then maybe why they do it. In other words, what, I sell water, how, through distribution XYZ, why, oh, I never thought about that, or why, because I believe people need healthy water. They usually just slap a slogan at the back and think that answers the why. The billionaire mindset is exactly the opposite. And we, once again, see this from all the companies. We see this from We Buy Cars. We see this from Apple, where they say, start with why, always. Apple said, we wanted to bring our technology for the consumer, accessible to them. They were the inventors of the desktop as we know it. That's where they started. How? By bringing out an accessible product, that the consumer can never afford, but can use, and it's got a function in their lives, and XYZ and XYZ, and then they say, what? Oh, in the form of an iPhone or iPad or MacBook. Now think about your company. Why do you do what you do? Should be the most important thing. Your why needs to determine what you do, or how you do it, rather, and then the last thing is your product. And why is this important? Because we see from, especially Victorinox, we see from all the examples that your product might be obsolete within overnight. There might be no demand, or there might be a trend in saying we don't need this anymore, or there might be a backward spiral. But if your company is built on your product, that means your company will close its door when there's no demand for your product. But if your company is focused on your why and your what, that means you can innovate and bring out new products, new solutions, new services. When I say products, I don't mean only products. I mean whatever you offer, you're offering. You need to start with why you do it before you are so focused on the product that you own. The third thing is they are ambassadors of their culture and not their products. You'll see resilient company owners, when you see them, they are an ambassador of what they do. And as a business owner, you might think, yes, this is true. But think about your sales staff, think about your senior people in your company. When they go out, are they ambassadors of your company? Because if you trust your leadership in their hands and they don't qualify as to that, you're not really building a resilient company. And then on that note, I want to say, if you're an ambassador of something, it means that your life resembles your work. There's no on and off switch. It's not I'm at work and I'm at home. We'll talk more about that later. We're moving into the final parts now, don't get me wrong. One thing we've noticed, a pitch gone wrong. So there was this guy pitching to investors that he needed money, and he put out the entire presentation. They spoke well. It was amazingly good. And at the end of that, everyone in the boardroom, the one guy stood up and he said, listen, I want to buy 10 from your products. And this guy was confused. It's like, I don't want you to buy my products. I want you to invest in my company. And he said, but you were never an ambassador of your company. You pitched all your products now. That was your pride. So sold, I want to buy. But I know nothing about your company. I don't know how you feel about your company. I don't know your dreams for your company, because that's not what you were talking about today. We see this in marriages, for example, when we take it to bring it into the household. You get people that they speak good about their husbands and wives. And then they sit there and they build them up on this pedestal, and it's absolutely great, and it's a beautiful thing. They mean well, they intend well, but they say nothing good about their marriage. But because they said something good about their wife, so you're sitting there in the outskirts and you're thinking to yourself, this is going to sound wrong now that I say it. I'm just going to say it. You're sitting there and you're saying, like, I'm interested in your wife, but I'm not interested in your marriage. And that's why first-time entrepreneurs, you see Vusi Temakwaya speak about it a lot. What do they focus on? They focus on product. Second-time entrepreneurs, what do they focus on? Distribution. They don't care about product, because product can change the whole time. Okay. Next slide. Oh, no, same slide. Same slide. Don't change. I'm almost done. Then the fourth trait is coaching and surrounding, environment. Okay, sorry, not environment. Coaching, we're moving this way around, looks like it. Coaching and surrounding. So, did you know the top 5 people you spend most of your time with is a direct representation of who you are? The top 5 people you spend time with shapes who you are as a person. That is why resilient people are very mindful on how they spend their time, even off the books. Because those people, and I'm not saying don't connect with other people, that's not the purpose. I'm talking about where you get your input and value, where you put your valuable time in. Most time is they get it from the top 5 people. So we've got this rule in business that you can try to do, or in my life I do this. Surround yourself, I call it the quarterback and the cheerleader theory, okay? Quarterback as in with football, the superstar, the lawskakel, and cheerleaders. Surround yourself in your life with 5 quarterbacks and 5 cheerleaders. They don't need to be in your company. Quarterbacks are the people that is successful, that star plays, that's got influence, that's got experience, however you see that. People that you would listen to when they speak. But then with that, you need 5 cheerleaders, people that will motivate you along the way when you fail. You need them. It is important to distinct. There needs to be a difference between a quarterback and a cheerleader. My wife is an amazing cheerleader because she always motivates me. She's a horrible quarterback. Why? Because she always motivates me. A quarterback needs to tell you, stop what you're busy doing with, because you're wasting your time. A quarterback is someone that will just grind you the whole time and say, listen here, those are the type of people that you need to surround yourself with. Each year, what we do is we reevaluate and we say, okay, I need to spend a little less time with those people and a little bit more with this. And I want to be very, very clear on the following. I'm not saying you should only have 10 people in your life. Your purpose of business, of doing business, is to exist in the infinite space so that you can build kingdom and community for God. That is the purpose. So community and connection and connecting with people, don't say, I don't have time with you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about your valuable time of influence receiving and influence giving. Be mindful that you spend time with 5 quarterbacks and 5 cheerleaders. Then, the last thing on coaching and surrounding. Successful people or resilient people, I won't say successful, resilient people tend to be open to coaching. Okay? That forms part of the whole cheerleader and quarterback thing. Now, I just want to say something about coaching. So, we're business coaches, right? I like using the analogy of coaching in health and sports because that's something we can all resemble to. So, imagine a fat person. You can imagine your mother-in-law. That's fine. So, imagine this person and their coach, their health coach, fitness coach, however you want to see that. And maybe you've been in this space. I'm not talking about the obesity space. I'm talking about this needing to get coached space in a physical environment. Maybe you've been in that space. There's a huge difference between someone that needs the help or assistance or motivation, raising their hand and going to a coach and say, I need coaching, versus a coach that needs to go to a person and say, come fatty, bietjie run vandag. There's a huge difference. And successful people, I'm saying successful, resilient people knows this exactly. They know they should raise their hand and say, I need coaching. And it's not because of a problem that I have. You see fit people, healthy people in the gym also being coached because they understand it's a continuous thing. So if you want to be resilient, it's maybe time to raise your hand and say, I need someone to shapeshift. I need someone to bounce ideas off. I need someone with influence. It doesn't need to be us. I'm not saying you get 5% discount if you book us today. I'm not saying that, right? It can be anyone, as long as you've checked the, yeah. So be open to coaching and don't wait for a coach to come to you. It's not sustainable. It's the same as a stupid event like this. The people that paid for the event is here the first time, they're here, they don't drop out. It's with anything in life like that. If you're at the robot and you get a free seigstokkie, freebie one, here you go, you're most probably going to complain about the taste or not eat it. So get active from your side with that. The last trait of resilience is they understand that environment shapes habit. We do this the other way around. We say, I need to be the change. You do not need to be the change. You alone will not change a habitat. The environment needs to change. Your work environment needs to change. Your culture needs to change in that work environment. Not culture in the sense of go slaughter a lamb or anything like that. I'm not talking, it's not a religious act. Your culture needs to change because that influences the habits of who's working with you. That influences your managers' roles, their thoughts, how they work. Don't go solely in and say, I'm going to show everybody. Change your value system, change your culture. Okay. 2 more things and I'm done. We're going to talk about how to change that value system. Next slide. I just quickly want to ask you guys, what time did we say? We've got time, ne? Yeah. I said I'll be done by 9:30. I'll be done by 9:30. Who can tell me from this picture what is the most valuable piece of equipment? Raise of hands, and then you can... Yes. The barista. Okay, next. Anyone wants to agree or say something from that? The barista. Okay, I think in a perfect world that would have been a great answer, but you don't know that barista. Okay, they might be. They sure is on the road to be, but without that barista, I think the business will be able to continue, as long as it's replaced by a great barista, of course. We don't want the barista to get fired, so if they're good, great, but if they get a better job offering and they're gone, hopefully the business doesn't fall. The most important, valuable piece of equipment is one that you can't really actually see. It's the one that he's holding in his right arm, and it's called the thermometer. That is a 500,000 or let's say 400,000 rand machine. That is a 400 rand thermometer, and that is the most important one. Now, if you go to coffee shops, and I know you guys see me at certain places in town, I'm talking all coffee shops, right? If you go to coffee shops, this is what happens is, let's be honest, the coffee tastes exactly the same. like the beans, you can say this one is your favorite. If they switch their beans overnight, you most probably won't even know it. Okay, you might say this tastes different, but it's fine. So you're there for the experience. That's a great thing. But the reason why you keep going back is the consistency. If you go into a coffee shop and you know your cappuccinos and you order a cappuccino and you burn your mouth with the first sip, will you go back there tomorrow? No. And the only thing in that offers that gives them consistency is the thermometer. And the biggest ability that a coffee shop setting have to success is that, especially if they have multiple sites, is ensuring that all what you order every day tastes the same. You know what you're to expect. So I'm saying this to you kind of as a sidetrack, but that you think about in your business, the small things that you do that you might not see valuable, that brought clients in for the experience. Those are the things that if you grow into the infinite space, those are the things that you never, never should let go of. If people compliment you and say, yes, like it, I always come here and the water is so cold, it's refreshing, or thanks for always offering me a coffee and you grow bigger, don't drop that. Because it's that consistency that adds to the experience. Okay, so let's get to the formula. This is what you guys paid for. This is what you want to know. What is the formula to having a resilient company, exiting the finite space into the infinite games? So the first thing that you want to do is you need to remember that you and your company are one. And you need to remember that this formula needs to resemble in your personal life and in your company. Because it's all about creating the culture, it's all about creating the environment, and that shapes the habits from there. So, the first thing that you want to do is you need to develop and invest, and we're going to go through those 4 after this slide, and that's the last slide. So you need to develop and invest in purpose, in servitude, in wealth, and in processes. That is what your company needs. That is what your life needs to exit the finite space. What you then want to do is these things need to reflect in your value system, apply to your culture, and then you need to scale this behind your products. Now, why didn't I say put those 4 in the rule books, and why did I mention value systems? You would notice that your company most probably have contracts and laws, and these are the rules. These are the 10 commandments that you're not allowed to break. Luckily, the lawyer has left the building. I'm telling you now, rules are not great. Value systems are great, and there's a difference. And let me give you the coaching analogy again. Let's say a coach teaches or coaches a star athlete, a great athlete. The coach will most probably tell the athlete when they're on the rule system, they will say, you need to exercise this amount of hours per day. You need to only eat healthy food. You need rest. You need this, and they'll put out all the rules. Okay? So, this athlete is perfectly healthy. And on the weekend, they had the kid's birthday party, and he eats a slice of cake. Did he break the rule? He did, because the rule said no sugar. Does it make him a bad athlete? Heck no. So what's the purpose of the rules if it can be broken? Whereas if a coach would have said, listen here, we've got a value system that says you need to eat healthy or be healthy. Our value system in our household said we will be a healthy household. That means if I decide today to not exercise, I didn't break the value system. That means today if I decide to eat some cake and have some chocolate, I did not break the value system. But it also does mean if I do it every single day, I'm breaking the value system. Value systems are way more powerful because you can keep people accountable to it. If you've got a value system and say you will be an ambassador of this company, you don't need to put out rules. If your employee goes out and they're drunk in a bar and you see them there, you can tell them, are you being an ambassador? But if you have rules, imagine how long the rules will be. Not allowed to drink, not allowed to do this, not allowed to do this. Not only one cocktail, not only one this. Oh, no, that's not what we meant. But then what are you clarifying? What are you trying to say? It's great to have contractual rules, right? We need to have it because of our Employee Act and all those type of things. But I'm saying if you want to build a company, you build your purpose, your servitude, your wealth, your processes. You take that and you build a value system. That value system applies to your company culture. Who are you as a company? And then you scale behind your products. You scale that culture, you scale that companies. It's not about how many bottles of water do we sell if we sell water. It's just like we are scaling this company with the current products, with the future products, with everything to come. That's the way we're going to. Then what you want to do is you want to build your brand around your why. You want to take your value system and you want to start building a brand. Like when people see you, they know exactly what you stand for. That's the brand. And that brand you want to start by building around your why. You guys do it brilliantly. Buy local. Sorry, I'm not you, Ian. Get out of the way. You guys do it brilliantly. You are ambassadors of your why. You are ambassadors of the movement. It's not about the one person buying in. It's about the environment building into this culture. Then what you want to do, lastly, is you take your brand and your why, and that is what you market. You don't need to tell people, buy my water. You need to tell people, this is us and we are fabulous. The one thing that people do wrong with marketing, and this is very true, is they tend to speak the voice that they want to speak and not the language that the audience needs to listen to. In other words, you speak in the language of your audience. If you are speaking to South Africans and you're speaking to Boere South Africans, then you would use words like lekker. You speak their language. Don't go and say to a marketing agency, I want the biggest trending Facebook post that company, my competitors are busy doing, but your competitors is in Australia. They don't speak your local language. And I'm not talking about the actual language, English, Afrikaans. I'm talking about the method of speaking. You always need to communicate your brand into the audience's ear on the language they're speaking. Otherwise, it's not relevant. Okay, so next slide. Now we're quickly going to go into depth with purpose, servitude, wealth, and process, and we'll be done before the time. So when I said the 4 elements that you need to take into your company, take into their culture, these are the 4. Purpose, servitude, wealth, and process, otherwise known as PSV. Okay, I thought about something. I could have maybe said, I don't know. Okay. Anyone who can tell me the difference between purpose and motivation? Because we tend to think it's the same. You guys are 100% correct. So, the difference is motivation is short-term. Okay? Purpose is long-term. So I want to give this to you an example. The biggest motivator in a company is money, salary. You want to give a guy motivation, you give him a lekker groot salaris, and he'll be motivated. But because motivation is short-term, that's not what's going to keep him there. Why? Because of the obvious, he's most probably going to work still sucks, and I get paid a lot, but I bought a new house and got a wife, or new wife, teasing, or got better-looking children, send them to higher school. So now my living expenses is higher, so I need to be motivated a bit more. And what does their work ethics do? Just goes down because of motivation. The other thing is, the person might be perfectly motivated, happy, they're happy with everything. But because you paid them more and in a skill set more, what do you think will happen when anyone else comes to that person and say, come work for me? What's the only deciding factor? What's my leave and what's my pay raise? If they give them slightly bit more leave or more money, he'll be gone. That's motivation. Purpose, on the other hand, purpose is when someone during bad times feels that I belong in that company, I belong in that culture, I belong in that value system. And you'll see that everywhere. You'll see that when a company cannot afford everything this month, those are usually the people that they are sad and they might be angry, but they say, you know what, I'm here tomorrow again, and it will not affect my work that I'm doing. They might be dickback, but they will be there doing their work. Sustainable leadership is the number one thing how you teach people to find purpose in what they do. There's a story that I think it was also Simon, or it might have been Jordan Peterson, either one of the two, talks about the story. They visited a Four Seasons hotel, and there was a barista. And the barista gave them a coffee, and it was an absolutely amazing barista. Great experience. I loved it. And this guy just had this joy and smile and everything. And let's give them Simon Peterson, then it's collective. I don't know which one it was, can't remember. Might have been someone else. And they said to this guy, do you like your job? And this guy, without a doubt, said, I love my job. And it's important, love. Like is rational, love is emotional, right? This guy loves his job. And he's like, why do you love your job so much? And he said, because of the culture of this work environment. I'm accountable for everything that I do wrong or do right. But this culture allows me to feel belong, to have purpose, to explore in this field. And he said, interesting enough, this is not his only job. He's a barista and he mentioned XYZ companies as well, right? They use him over weekends or whatever. And he said he absolutely hates it there. He absolutely hates it there. And they said, why? He said, because they've got this strict, poisonous culture where it's everything by the rule book. There's no exploration. So he says he goes to work with his head lowered that no one would notice. So this is amazing what purpose and environment does. What it does is it's the same person, but you as a consumer, you as a customer experience that same person completely different just because of the environment that he's in. It's about serving beyond your offering. So how can you measure purpose in your company? This is a very great example. And please don't tell your managers or employees I said this. You go to them and you say to them, listen, I might not be able to pay you next month. Don't not pay them. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying have that conversation with them. See how that impacts them, how they react to it. I'm sorry. There we go. See how they react to it. And that should give you a guideline. Are you sitting with people around you that has purpose or is motivated? Okay. When people don't feel purpose, this is what happens. We see it in old people, right? So old people might financially retire well. Their kids have degrees, their children is healthy, they've retired well. They've got the finances that they need. Let's use them as an example. So they've got the motivation to live. They've got the motivation to want to be here. But now they retire, they've got no job. Now they want to go and visit the kids, but the kids are like, we're not here. Or when they visit the kids, they're like, okay, I want to do something. Kids are like, no, we sorted. We don't need your money. We don't need you. Like, chill. Have some coffee. Watch TV. You don't need to do anything. And you see in that specific example, because of those people, those elderly people, well, I'm pretty sure you guys will see it as well, because they have no purpose, because they don't need to provide anymore, they don't need to worry or risk or go to work for someone. They've got all the finances that they need, but because they've got no purpose anymore, they just started going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards. Until one, unfortunately, passes away, you'll see the other person, the wife or the husband, very fast, because now they really have no purpose anymore. It is an amazing thing, not amazing to witness. I'm not saying go and be weird about that, but it is amazing human behavior to see purpose drives us way further than motivation can at all. So in your company, before you are worried to motivate your people, worry about how you find purpose in your own life. And do you have purpose? There's great series and contents out there on how you can find, if you don't have your purpose, if you feel that it takes energy to contribute in a day, that this is effort, you don't like it, you're doing it for the money and that's all, you lack purpose, I would strongly suggest finding that purpose. And I would strongly suggest assisting your people in your company to do the same. Okay. Servitude. Keep it on that slide. Servitude is the next one. And this is amazing. This is where this whole idea of today's keynote came from, was to give you the answer if a billionaire comes along and copies and pastes exactly what you do. What is the only thing that you can kind of guarantee is a method to go to keep customers from choosing you? And that's to serve your customers. It is a very, very difficult thing to do. We think we serve our customers through our products and services. And to an extent we do. But it's, once again, if it's a product or service that anyone else can do, then it's not. We don't really live with the heart of serving people anymore. Think about it this way. Do you welcome competition in your niche for the sake of your client? No, we despise it. Would you, if your client comes in, listen to what they have to say, and in your mind you think, there's maybe a better suited product or service out there than what I offer, and I know about them. Would you show your client to that person? We need to start serving again. And serving is always, for me, so important when it comes to, I think the best way to describe servitude is to serve someone, it needs to most probably cost you something. So in our household, for example, in the beginning, I used to think that when I help my wife, when I make her coffee in bed, when I help with the kids' chores, when I help with things like that, I used to think I'm serving her. And then I thought about it, I said, wait a minute, I'm not serving her, I'm being a husband. This is what I need to do. And in my life, it is very important to your personal life and your business. There's no such thing as a work-life balance. There's no such thing as a work-life balance. Right? Especially if you're a company owner or manager, there's no such thing. There shouldn't be a balance. It's not now I'm in my work clothes, now I'm in my play clothes. You need to be an ambassador of the same culture in both. Okay? When you talk to people and they say, I go to church, I'm a Christian, and you go to their companies and you're like, oh, I did not see that. I did not know that. Yeah, but this is work. No, but there's no such thing as a work-life balance. You're an ambassador of your life, of your purpose, of your culture, of who you are. It should be exactly the same. So this is the thing, right? So it was very hard on my heart to think, how can I serve in my household? What's the things that cost me, that I don't need to do, and it costs me my personal time or anything like that? So it's stupid examples. I'm not saying go and take my examples, but think about it. So on a Sunday, after we've played around with the kids or anything like that, I go wash my wife's car for the week. We could have just taken it to the car wash on Friday or Saturday. That's my thing to say, I want you to just have a clean car for the week. Another example that we do, we are in a privileged position to have Nomvula, our domestic help that helps with the kids and everything. She's absolutely brilliant. We pay her to be there. She has her job, and that's what we tell people is, you get paid to do this. You know, that's your job. That's how we hide behind the mask. And I don't need to do the dishes. I don't need to clean the house. I don't need to do those things. But we make it our mission on a Sunday, also on a Sunday, when we put the kids to bed, we clean the house. We do the dishes. We clean everything. We make it a perfect work environment for Nomvula on a Monday. Because I'm sure she sits at home with her kids, with her environment, also like all of us saying, I'm not lus for werk tomorrow. You need to apply a culture of servitude in your life. It needs to cost you something, whatever it is, and you need to take that into your company. The next one is wealth. Now, we love this, right? So, in order to be resilient, we need to be wealthy. Yes, we need to be wealthy. But the problem is, we think financial wealth is the only wealth that's there. Financial wealth will come. I'm not preaching prosperity. I'm not saying it will be in the form of money. But if you run a resilient business, you'll go through everything like that. But in the long run, that's the purpose of a resilient company, is they've got the wealth to carry them through that. Doesn't mean you're not going to go through troubled times. Okay, but here's the thing, is we forget that there's multiple wealths in your company and in your own life. There's spiritual wealth, there's physical wealth, there's financial wealth, there's mental wealth, there's family wealth. And by the way, wealth is the number one reason why people have purpose, including your employees. This is the single most powerful thing that will give you the purpose that you seek. The problem is we look only at financial wealth and we forget that financial wealth equals motivation and not purpose. So, think about it. Spiritual wealth. How full is your cup? Physical wealth. How full is your cup? Mental health. Family health. Do you have time for your family? Do you have time for your friends, your social wealth? It is 100% up to you to make sure those cups are all full. Not all full. All of them are full. Just worried about the auto captions on Zoom. People's like, And this is the important thing. If you have an employee or team that is purpose-driven, you're building a resilient company. Because through tough times, they will be there tomorrow. And in order for them to have purpose, you need to build on their wealth. Now, contractually, financial wealth, you only need to offer, you've got your model with that. I'm not saying you need to risk the company with that. But spiritual wealth is important to them. So I'm asking you this. In your meetings that you have, in your company, because you all have meetings, do you pray when you open up your meeting? And I know you talk to clients and they say, listen, we need to have an equal act of there are people that's not religious and there's not that and then there's that. I'm like, you're not forcing anyone to be there. There's interviews that they did with Muslims and Hindus that they said that we actually appreciated people doing that. No one said, I need to sit around the table. They said, we open up in prayer. That's what we do. Then the other thing is, in your staff, do you ask people to pray for the company, for you, and do you ask if they need prayer or anything? Because believe it or not, spiritual wealth is a cup that needs to be filled with purpose. Now think about it for one moment. If you go through troubled times and you walk into your company and your employees are praying for your bad times, how does it make you feel? The second thing is physical health. Physical health is important. Guys, you don't need to go run marathons. But if someone is sitting there and they are 400 kgs, smoking, drinking Monsters and eating Kentucky the whole day, it should be a problem for you. Not because of the fact that tomorrow you need to hire again. That's not the thing. That person is sitting there and it takes away from their purpose. Now, it's sometimes a sensitive thing because you can easily say, jy moet gaan oefen, maar die ander hoef nie. It's not about saying that. Don't go to a person and say, jy moet. It's about saying this company has a culture of we go for a company walk every Wednesday, 1 p.m. around the block. That's what we do as a company. And we discuss business, or we have our vision meeting, or we incorporate it with anything else. You don't need to go and enter people for marathons and things like that. It needs to mean that you need to create the environment for those people to feel that you're adding to their purpose. They still have the choice to say, I'm not going. And when I talk about physical wealth, I'm not talking about only, I know I use the example, but I use extreme examples. If you can be well looked in shape and still live that health style life, it's going to catch you at some point. Even if you just go from the scientific point of dopamine levels and et cetera. Then there's mental health, the same. If people are burning out in your company, what do you do about it? And if you are close to burnout, you know how much I respect business owners in really difficult times when I say, like, it's really harsh, and they sit in that office and they're just frustrated, completely frustrated, and say, you know what? Everyone in this office, please note, for 2 hours I'm quickly going fishing. It's a lucky excuse to use every time. Don't. People notice it. But the purpose is, are you an ambassador of your own mental health, or are you just showing everybody that you can handle it better than they can? And then the second thing is, are you giving them space in your work environment to look after their mental health? The same is with family health. Think about it. Do you know everyone in your company? Are they married? Do you know their wives' names? Do you know their kids' names? Do you know what their kids dream to be one day? Do you care enough to have that conversation with everybody in your company? And you might run a 1,000-employee company. Then just work on the hierarchy, your circle. Like, do you know people there? Do you know who's expecting, who's going through difficult times, who lost a grandmother, who wishes they lost a mother-in-law, who, you know, what's going on in their family wealth? And are you creating space for that? Because once you start doing these things, people are open and say, listen, yeah, my marriage is on the rocks. And you say to this employer, what about if I carry your workload for 2 days? And you go home and you sort things out there. What if I invest in that space for you? And I know everyone's thinking, yes, but everyone will take advantage of these wealth cups, right? Everyone will take advantage. Those are the people that you employed. You need to look at a cultural fit if you look at people. Before you hire people, fire people. Get rid of everyone that doesn't fit into a cultural fit of able to sustain into purpose, of build this resilience that's just there to milk you for, I don't know. You can easily see that. The last thing is, I already mentioned family health. Okay. Then the last thing is process. Yeah. Processes are important to build a culture of resilience because it is the only thing that allows you to automate and to seem bigger than you actually are. And believe it or not, if you seem bigger than you actually are, you build rapport and trust in the community. So, what people do wrong with processes is they tend to put processes over people. Don't do that. Okay? What people also do wrong with processes is they tend to develop processes when the need has already come, which means it's usually a rush decision. So remember this, you will do every job in your business that you don't document and train someone else to do. one thing that I felt that I don't know if I'm going to mention it, I don't think I have. If you've got people in your company on management, right, that has the ability to think, brainstorm with you, please create a culture of asking why more. If someone asks your decisions the whole time, why do you say that? Don't feel attacked. Don't feel that, they see it as they want perspective. To ask why is to gain perspective on what you're busy doing. And if you've got people that has the guts in your company to question not question your authority, not question the job, just question, is this the best course of action? Those are the people you want around you. Okay. So, here's the conclusion of today. Next slide. I'm going to read from the screen. It says, resilience is building a company culture that's driven by purpose, a culture that one wakes up to with a drive to want to participate in and see value in what they do. It is a space where one can go to bed with a sense of something was accomplished today. It is to offer a relevant product or service to a consumer, offering a solution that serves their needs, offering this while creating a company culture that is not concerned about competition and cancels pride in what you do and build pride in why you do it. Your measure tool is always to ask, what if a billionaire comes along? Your business plan does not make you resilient. And without purpose and willingness to exit the finite games, unfortunately, your business can, with or without your control, deplete overnight.